Welcome to the Northern Affinity Video Podcast. During this session, we will be having an unedited discussion with an expert. And what I'll be planning to do is, during our discussion, get them to teach me something. Teach me about something that's of interest, but also they are an expert in. I'm Michael Edwards and I'm the founder of the Northern Affinity. And I will tap into our wonderful community to bring you along on my drive for self-improvement and my desire to learn. So please connect with me on various social media platforms, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram or Twitter. And I'd love to hear from you what subjects you'd like to learn more about, or what subjects you think it'd be good for me to learn about. So please, get in contact and let me know. All the details will be in the show notes, and you can send me an email or contact me via the various platforms. I really hope you enjoy the show. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Wayne Stevenson this time to discuss. For people on the video can see on the screen, we're talking all about unused talent pools. So we're talking about people and getting the best out of maybe different types of people that people don't necessarily always go to. So thanks for joining us, Wayne.
Thank you very much for having me, Mike.
I think probably a really good place to start with you, Wayne, is kind of give us an overview of what you do and the work you do, and I think that very much will frame this conversation and kind of understand. So, yeah, fire away.
Okay, so we work with adults with learning disabilities and/or autism, and we also work with employers, and basically we try and facilitate employment opportunities for the guys that we work with. We offer support to both the individual and the employer through the whole process and beyond. So we aim to never stop the support if it's needed. So it's very much an ongoing thing. It's about developing relationships between all three parties, or even more than that if needed. But yeah, that's a basic overview of what we do.
No, and I know the work you guys do is fantastic, Wayne, and I think it's something to kind of understand a bit more detail about why it's needed, I guess, and why the work you do is needed for both, like I said, potential employers and employees, why they need someone like you to kind of be there as the middle person. So it'd be really good to understand that and why there's an issue, I guess.
Yeah, I think from the employer point of view, straight away, as sort of the title suggests, it's this unused talent pool that they can get access to, and it's not always easy to get to that, I suppose. So for an employer, there's a wealth of talent out there that might not be getting used, and they can access that through our support. And that's obviously beneficial, more diverse workforce. But then on the other side of things, for someone with a learning disability, the statistics show that it's fewer than 5% of adults with learning disabilities are in paid employment. Wow. And alongside that, around 60%, maybe slightly more than 60%, would actually want paid employment. So that's a massive problem, I think, that really does need addressing. And hopefully we're part of that solution and matching people to sort that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes without saying, I guess, that the work you do, every circumstance is different. No one thing is the same, and that's kind of part of the reason you're there. But it'd be really interesting to kind of maybe typical examples of the challenges that are faced again on both sides, and why the sport's there, but I understand those challenges and how it can be worked around, I guess, and how it can be worked with, probably is a better way of saying it.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with saying that it's different for everyone, and that's what we aim to do. So we're very much, it's an individualized offer that we want to provide, or support that we want to provide, and that's for the employer or for the individual. In terms of an individual and employment, I think the typical sort of recruitment process is really inaccessible. I could argue that it's inaccessible to most people potentially, or certainly very difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly that's something that we found with the people we work with, and ahead of setting up, asking people and people that we've worked with in previous roles, that's clearly an issue. So an application form, often with the people we work with, there's not a lot going on in terms of work history or education at times. So often they fall short at that stage. But we just feel that doesn't necessarily represent the person or mean that they won't be able to do that job. And again, I know that this is the same for a lot of people out there with a learning disability or not. But that's just something that we've found, and we sort of want to work around that. And then moving on to that interview process, again, a nightmare for a lot of people. Not something that I've ever been a fan of having to do.
No, I don't think many people are, to be fair.
Exactly. So, that's something else. So we try and find ways of working around that, like you say. So that can vary widely. But things like potentially a work trial. So that could be a few sessions in work, and it can be supported, it can be supervised as much as needed, and then maybe a casual chat after, rather than a sit-down formal interview, which I just so often doesn't represent the person well enough. Whereas if you get to see someone in work or in a working environment, even if it's supported, I think that represents them more about what they can do. Hopefully puts them a bit more at ease potentially. And then, a more casual chat is just, you can really see someone's character, can't you? So that is one potential route around that.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point, because the whole interview type of setup, like you quite rightly said, I think for a lot of people it's not something that's particularly great. I mean, being good at an interview is a skill, isn't it? But it might not be the skill that you need for the role. So it almost doesn't make sense, doing things like work trials. I guess there's obviously a logistics element of that, in a lot of circumstances, that people can't do it, but it just seems to make a lot more sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. The interview process is just awful. So, but you're quite right. Like, we've had it before where we can give interview tips and things like that, but that almost it feels like someone's trained to give an interview, as you say. So you could be good at an interview, it's a skill, and I can see why it could be important, but I just think, there's better ways around it, and that is potentially one of them. Yeah,
absolutely. And I guess one thing to ask as well is around government support, central support. What's out there for? Again, I guess this is a question for both sides. It'd be interesting to know what help there is there, because I would make an assumption, and it might be a big leap, that the government want as many people working as possible, and they would do everything they can to get those people in work. Now, I appreciate that might not be the reality of the situation, but it'd be really interesting to know what's out there and how does all that work.
Yeah, I'll try and not get too political on this. No, there's
don't worry, we've got a bleep button if you need to use
it. We'll try and avoid using it, but yeah, good to know. There's access to work funding's a government scheme, which it's got the potential to be so useful. I think there are some problems with it in general, but it can be really, really useful for the employer and the any individual. And access to work funding is not just for someone with learning disability; it's for someone with health problems as well, or physical disability, learning disability. And it's access to work. What problems are there, and how can we solve them? So access to work funding can actually support quite a range. So it doesn't cover things it doesn't cover reasonable adjustments. So anything that an employer should do, like rearranging a workspace, that's something that employer should do and will do, lighting, things like that. But if it's specific equipment, that can be funded. So someone with a physical disability might need a certain chair, for example, or desk, and that can be supported. Some people we work with need support with travel to get to work or getting around during work. That can be funded through access to work. Something where we come in is job coaching. So that's where we would, if a person, we feel they're right for the job, but they might just need some extra support in the integration process and learning a specific task, or a bit extra support with training or something like that. That's where we could come in as a job coach, and that again is funded by access to work. That means that any worries that an employer might have about, we need to give up this much time to train, it's not true. It can be funded and supported. It's one of my favorite things to do in my role. I'm currently, I think you may have seen on LinkedIn that post, I'm currently working in a factory, believe it or not. So what we've done there is the employer we work with is great. And basically I went in for a few weeks before to learn various tasks, light fittings, how to do them. And then the individuals who's working there, I'm working with him, and I'm training all these light fittings. So that's another workaround as well. And that links in with what we were saying earlier about how can we get around some of these issues, and that's certainly one of them. So that's sort of the biggest scheme that can really support a lot of the challenges that might come about. And like I said, that again, that isn't just around learning disabilities. It's people with health problems and physical disabilities, and I think that's important because I don't think it's that well known, unfortunately. I don't think many people know about it. That application for that would come through an individual. So anybody who feels like they need extra support or equipment or travel funding would put that application in. But it's something we support people with doing the application. And I know an employer might want to do that as well. But probably, like I said, probably just need to be more aware of it. It's just not known.
No, and I think there you kind of, obviously fairly briefly mentioned an example of some of the work you do. And that was one thing I was going to ask, if you could kind of almost take us through an example where of somebody who, from kind of start to finish, if you like, when you've found an individual, found a business, what you've done with them. I think it'd be really interesting for people to hear that, because it'll kind of bring it to life a little bit. Now, I appreciate you might not want to share the names of the business and the individual, and that's absolutely fine, and change whatever bits you need to change. But it'd be really interesting to kind of understand that story of how it can work from both the employee and the employers.
Yeah, and again, I will say that it is completely individual, so it's different every time. But a rough example, not a rough example, an example will be, again, someone else that we've posted around, which is a lad called Josh. Really talented, really skilled, great lad. Was lacking a lot of confidence around work. He'd had a temporary role, I think just one temporary paid role, and he didn't feel like he was treated well there. I won't say who that company is, but he didn't feel sort of appreciated there. And then he was really struggling, around confidence more than anything. So we worked on that with him. What we'll do is we'll identify his skills, his qualities, help him develop that confidence. And then through that, we try and find what roles or jobs or whatever he'd be suitable for, and what he'd enjoy as much as anything, and what he'd really excel at. And then on the other side of this, we'll be working with as many employers as possible. So it's about identifying roles that they have, roles that they need to fill, things like this. So it's very much about that kind of job matching for us. So it has to be right for both parties. We don't want this to be a charity or a favour or anything like that. It's about finding the right person for the right role and the right employer, and matching all that together. So with Josh, we found that it was something that he's doing a cleaning role, something that he wanted to do, something that he's really enjoying. But most importantly, it's a really supportive company for him, where he does feel valued, and his manager's been really great with him. So with Josh, he started off. It's actually been perfect for Josh in so many ways, because he said he wanted to start with part-time and build up, and he's done it exactly how he wanted. So that's what he's doing. I think he started on 14 hours. I think he's doing 30 plus now. I'm not entirely sure the exact number, but it's that. And just going on to what I was saying about the ongoing side of things, Josh started in, I think, January this year. And basically we've checked in with him, either phone calls or meeting, going for a coffee with him pretty much every month, just about, sometimes a couple of times a month. And that's, again, just with Josh, like I say, it's more around the confidence for Josh. And it is just about that, he's asked questions around his contract initially. So we've gone through that. There's been things around his benefits, because that's something that sometimes comes up. Will the benefits be affected? And initially it wasn't, but now he's off benefits, which, again, that were another target of Josh's. He wanted to get off benefits, and he moaned at me recently because he's having to pay tax now and things like that, which is
we all feel like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's how it should be, I was really glad of that. It was nice to hear him sort of moaning like anyone else would. He said, I should be on this much, but they took this much off me. So
it's one of those things, isn't it? It's like a nice negative almost. It's a thing that you kind of don't want to happen, but it's a good thing that has happened. It kind of doesn't make any sense, but yeah, I understand.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. He said he wanted to come off benefits. He did that, but then this is the other side of it. Now he's contributing, which is really good. Yeah. So that's one example of kind of the process, I suppose. And that'll continue. I'm meeting Josh next week to go catch up, see if there's anything else. And the other great thing about Josh is he wants to advance further. He wants to do more. I think he might want more hours here, but he wants sort of more responsibility and things. And I really like that, because it's about the career and the commitment to that, and sort of long-term goals for him. He's talking about moving out of his parents potentially next year, which it's great. And that all links in with that kind of the tax thing. It's all about him progressing and his own independence, and it's been really great to see that.
Yeah, I think you used the word right at the start of the answer about confidence, and I think my kind of outside view of it, that's one thing it gives people more than anything else, is that confidence, doesn't it? And obviously that's the thing that I'm sure that you have to help with in the initial stages. And I think there's probably maybe people who've had bad experiences. That's why they need that help. That's why we have low confidence often, isn't it? Any of us, it's based on bad experiences. And I guess on the other side of that as well is the confidence for the employer, because I'm going to make the assumption that most people want to do good things and the right thing, but it's a bit like, I don't really know where to start with it. I don't really know how to do this right. And that's a confidence thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's kind of still a stigma around it, potentially employing someone with a learning disability or disability, I think, but not necessarily in that, like you say, they want to do it. So it's not a stigma in that sense, but it's just kind of like maybe a fear around what that might look like or what might go wrong, unfortunately. And I can
because people don't want things to go wrong, do they? They don't want someone to have a bad experience. So someone who they know is going to be a challenge for them for whatever reason, they don't. Yeah. It's almost easier not to do it. Well, it is easier not to do it. Let's face it, it is easier not to do it. But people will also want to do the right thing and trying to get that. And obviously, that's, I guess, where you guys come in a lot, is kind of being that middle person to ensure both parties have the confidence.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, a company that we're working with a few weeks ago, they said something like, they're not. What exactly they said? They said basically they want to become more representative of, their community, and that's yes, learning disabilities, but everyone, they want to be more represented. And I just thought that's exactly what it is, isn't it? And like, you're quite right that more companies, there's loads of companies like that, and that's exactly it. And the great thing that they said, they were talking about the person they were going to employ we're working with as well, has this been just a starting point? So they want to do it more and more. So I mean, that's great for us and the work that we can do and offer. But it's just great for opportunities for just people in general. I think that's really good, and that's kind of what everyone. Like you say, a lot of people want to be able to do that, and if we can help do that in any way and support that's fantastic.
Yeah, one thing I was going to ask you about, which I just thought about it then, was obviously since the kind of the pandemic and what's happened there, one of the big things that's increased and grown is working from home, remote working, flexible working type things. Whilst kind of my immediate observation would be that's a positive for people maybe with learning disabilities, because it maybe gives them more options, or definitely physical disabilities. Mm-hmm. But actually, is there a challenge to that as well? The consequence of that, actually, some of the things that people want from the work is to be around people and to be supported regularly. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. I actually, as you know, we set up just before the pandemic, which is awful for trying to get people into work and employment opportunities. But one of the things we found when we started working with individuals again was, yes, confidence in general, but that social aspect. And again, this was for everyone, wasn't it? I know that it was same for me. Really missed that, just interacting with people in general, but it's I'm not the biggest fan of working from home. I really like, I like being able to chat with people and things like that. It's really important. So that were a massive thing that definitely came out of that. So many of the people that we work with do want to be active, involved, part of the team. And I think that is a lot harder working from home, obviously, so yeah, that definitely came up as an issue, maybe.
Yeah, I can see it as a challenge, because I think it's for all of us, isn't it? It's a challenge that we've got to, as a society, sort out over the next few years, because it got forced on us, and we kind of all understand why, and that was what it was for a while. But it's now trying to get this balance right, again, both for the employers and the employees to do that. And I guess we've all got our own challenges about working from home, and it might be, I'm lucky I'm at home right now in a space, and I've got a separate space I can work from, but not everyone's that lucky. Now, as you mentioned, you don't like working from home as much. I know where you are today. You're in one of the people we work with, Wizoo, in their spaces, and also there's some really great spaces about people. So just trying to get that right, and obviously it is relevant for everybody, but also specifically with this conversation around this talent pool of people who maybe just have to have extra considerations.
Yeah, definitely. And I think again, that can go back to that support, whether it's through sort of funding or through the employer themselves in terms of what support could they offer. You mentioned that that I'm at this co-working space. Potentially an employer can offer that to any employee. So that could be something that solves that. If they're not wanting to have, if an employer doesn't have offices anymore, that could be an option, couldn't it? And with funding, maybe that could help that. I don't know. There's definite workarounds, isn't there?
Well, I just thought then as well, there's potentially that where from physical disabilities actually where this helps, because most of these type of places will have certain things in place because of the size of them that are accessible for people with physical disabilities. Maybe that somebody who's got a business, a small business in an office in a certain location is just not right for whatever reason, where actually those spaces, like the one you're in, possibly will be. So it's just thinking a little bit differently. I'm just thinking about it, not thinking differently, thinking about it.
Exactly. Yeah, it is that, isn't it? Could always join Northern Affinity as well, and there's plenty of co-working days, so that would be a solution.
Absolutely, yeah. I like that solution, Wayne. So, last question for me really is if someone's listening to this and thinking, do you know what? I've not really thought about this before. I'm going to explore this as an option for when I employ my next person. What things would you say to them? What kind of advice would you give them in terms of where to kind of look and find out information to take that first step?
I think I'd encourage a discussion. So I'd chat with anyone, and it's about, like, from our point of view, it'd be finding out what the needs are of that employer in terms of what staff, what roles, what worries, what fears do they have around it, and we'd go from there. And there is a workaround for everything, but there's so many benefits as well, to the employer, to the individual. It's just, it's about having them conversations, and like you just said, about just starting to think about things. So I think that would be the first steps, and then we find the solutions from there.
No, it makes sense, Wayne. And obviously, if someone does want to find you, get a hold of you, find out more about you, where's the best places to look and go?
I'd say LinkedIn. We've got the company page on there, Positive Futures WY. I'm on LinkedIn. Sarah, co-founders, on LinkedIn, and we're on Twitter a bit as well. But and see you at a Northern Affinity event, hopefully, things like that.
Yeah, and obviously, if anyone can't find Wayne or what to do for whatever reason, do get in contact with the Northern Affinity. I'm going to, so I'll put all the details. So if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the details there, and also same on your podcast. I'll put all the Wayne's LinkedIn and everything like that on there as well. So if you do want to kind of get in touch and just find out more, it will be there. So finally, for me, Wayne, I just it's kind of congratulations for the work you're doing. As you touched on earlier, you set up at a time which was a little bit unfortunate. It wasn't the perfect time, but I'm sure you've become stronger for it, and I know the work you're doing with is invaluable, and it's genuinely helping people on a day-to-day basis. And I think a lot of people, anyone listening or watching this, will probably echo my sentiments. So that's great, and it's so thank you for that. It's fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Really appreciate that. Thanks for having me on. I really, that I do listen, and I watch the podcast on YouTube. I really do enjoy it. So it's been great to be on.
Oh, that's great. So thank you very much, Wayne.
Cheers.
I hope you enjoyed this chat today, and like me, you learned something new from our wonderful expert. So if you'd like to hear from more of our sessions, please subscribe on whatever platform that you get your podcast from to hear more. And also, we'd love to meet you at some point at one of our upcoming events. The Northern Affinity hold events all across the north of England, and we'd love to meet new people and have guests along. So please come along and check out our website or all the details in the show notes. Thank you very much.